Today, I'm detailing some of the most popular racks on the market. These are the major fitness racks. These are most popular because they're all over Amazon. I also get ads for them all the time. In fact, of all the racks that I've reviewed, I get asked about these by personal friends, probably more than just about any. And I think it's because they have a combination of a few different things. Good renders, good price, and quite a few features. So today I'm gonna detail most of the racks, compare most of the racks that they have available, tell you which ones I think are most interesting, and compare them to other companies that are on the market, because there's a lot. Let's get into it. Hey guys, it's Coop from Garage Gym Reviews. Today we are reviewing the Major Fitness, formerly Versatility racks. These are them. There are quite a few on the market. They have their folding rack, which we have over here, their F22, their PLM03, their Spirit racks, their F35. They've got some really banger names. These are more designed to be all-in-one racks, but on a budget end. So a few all-in-one racks that are really popular today are like the Force USAs of the world. Jacked Up Brands is another one, which we plan on doing a review. We actually have one coming out from Vesta Fitness. If you'd like to see that, make sure you subscribe. But then you also have your Rogues and your Reps of the world too, which are more on the higher end. And also, one we just reviewed, if you'd like to see it, make sure you subscribe to Brute Force Australia. There's a lot. This is a growing category, but one area that it's growing is not just like on the higher end, it's also on the more budget end. And I think Major Fitness is one of the biggest companies in this space. We did a review on their rack at one time, and so we wanted to bring their others in to review them. Now, I'm gonna kind of review them and talk about them at large because they use a lot of the same components and then kind of differentiate between them. First off, they're using very similar geometry across the line. So they're pretty much all bolt together. One of the reasons for this is because they're trying to pack them and ship them as cheaply as possible. So there is quite a bit of assembly on the user side, similar like IKEA, you pay less, you get it in a smaller box, you have to do more work on the assembly side. I'd say that's definitely true for these. The assembly instructions have definitely improved over time. When they used to be Major Duty, excuse me, Freudian slip, Major Luty, when they used to be Major Luty, they've since improved as they've grown. So the assembly time takes a little bit, but it's not like they're using heavy stacks and things like that. So it's not crazy hard. It's just, you gotta like work with the cables and pulleys. This video is brought to you by Element. I've been using Element for the past year or so. Element is an electrolyte sugar-free drink mix. Basically, it's salt, flavored salt that you put in your water. It tastes very good. They now have a bubbly version that tastes even better. Basically, it's a great option if you want to drink something other than sugary drinks. You want some benefits from electrolytes. Basically, the way I use Element is at the end of my day or midday when I'm starting to get tired. Basically, this is a good pick-me-up. Once I take this midday, I usually get out of the midday slump and then I'm able to keep working or training. But I've been using Element for over a year. I'm a huge fan and they now sponsor the channel. If you'd like to get your own free sample pack with any Element drink purchase, you can check out the link below the like button. Go through there. It has an exclusive offer for you where you can purchase them. Also, try these. These are very good. Whether you buy them or not is your choice. It's the choice of a new generation. Now, one thing you'll see, and it's not necessarily obvious, is they are using a 3-inch construction on the upright, but it's not 3x3, it's actually 2x3. One of the things that they decided to do on this, and I think it's more so because it looks more beefy from up front and it looks more like the bigger higher end racks, is they take a 2x3 post and instead of orienting it, so it's basically the thin side that faces you, they turn it 45 degrees. So basically the big end is on the side that you see. It makes it look bigger and beefy, which I think a lot of people like the look. It does have some downsides maybe on the use case because you have less room. You basically have an inch off on each side for you to basically rack and unrack the bar and also for your hands on the bar. But I don't think it's a huge deal. It's just a decision that they made. Now, another difference between these and more of the more expensive higher end racks is they're using a thinner gauge steel. It's a 14 gauge where most more expensive racks are using like an 11 gauge steel. The 14 gauge has some benefits in that it's cheaper to ship it's thinner, it's lighter, all those sorts of things. Downside is obviously it's lighter, so it's less stable. Also can't hold as much weight. For people that are buying this rack and looking into this rack, like, you don't need to worry about the weight rating. You're gonna be able to lift as much as you want. I've actually tested mini racks that have a similar gauge steel. One of them is like Fitness Reality rack, where we dropped like 800 pounds on it just to see how strong they're fine. So you're gonna be fine on this rack if you're wanting to lift quite a bit of weight. If you're just like a crazy power lifter or strongman, go with a heavier gauge rack, but most people are gonna be just fine with this. They are using 1-inch holes. It's a non-standard size because of the way they orient the upright, and they're using 1-inch holes on them, where most of the companies producing attachments are using a 2x3 with a 5/8-inch hole. Because of that, you basically are gonna have to use and be in their ecosystem. I will say, Major Fitness is coming out with more and more attachments. Like, they've got a delt raise even, jammer arms, dip handles, landmines, basically what most people are looking into. And they seem to be coming out with more and more. So understand, like, you're buying into an ecosystem that really you can only use their attachments. So make sure it's got ones you want. For the price and like the actual use case, I think they're fine. Then to the functional trainer side. Most of their racks are using plate-loaded functional trainers. And at first glance, you can't really even tell the differences. The main differences is they either have 2 weight plate trolleys or they have 1. And the difference between that is the 2 weight plate trolleys are individually 1-to-1. And then the single weight plate trolley is gonna be 2-to-1 if you use it individually, or 1-to-1 if you use them together. So you kind of have to decide, like, what's the benefit, which ones do you want? I will say the price difference between the single weight trolley and the dual weight trolley, they're actually the same price, at least on their website. So if it were me, I would probably get the dual pulley, but it's 1-to-1, whereas the other one is gonna have more cable travel if you use it as individual one. So there's pluses and minuses. If I was buying one, I'd probably buy the 2 separate ones so I could weight them separately. I will say the weight trolleys, the guide rods, what they're using, they work, they're functional, they're good enough, which is kind of the story with the Major Fitness racks in general. They're good enough. Like, you're gonna be fine in a home gym. They're not gonna break down if just a single person is using them, and you take somewhat care of them. And they've got enough smoothness. It's definitely smoother than like the old pulleys we used to use from like Spud Inc. when you're making your DIY versions. This one's gonna work just fine, especially if you lube the guide rods. The pulleys they're using are a plastic pulley. They're like a cheaper pulley with a cheaper bearing. What that means is they're gonna wear out more likely over time, but in a home gym, I don't think it's ever really gonna be an issue. Same thing with the cables. It's just like what you'd expect for the price. These are racks that are built to hit a price point. And they've done that. And so there are some things that they kind of like leave off and don't put as much emphasis on. And one of those is pulleys. I will say though, you could easily, I mean, they're a pretty standard pulley. Actually, in fact, bells of steel, you can buy aluminum pulleys from. So if you wanted to upgrade that componentry, you could very easily, and not for a crazy amount of price. And then you'd have actually a pretty good rack. I would like it actually, Major Fitness, because I'm hoping you're watching this video. Add aluminum pulleys as an upgrade option. I think that would actually be a nice thing to have. Now, one thing you'll notice is they do have some different options with a Smith machine or a fold-away rack or just the pulley options. We've got 2 here, one with the Smith machine, which honestly, the one with the Smith machine, that's the rack that's most interesting to me because it has a Smith machine, it has 2 functional trainers, and it has the full rack. I actually like that option. Like, it just depends on how much you want to spend. This one over here is actually a folding rack, which is their F35. One thing that's actually pretty thoughtful about the F35, it folds away, but you can also fold it in increments with a pop pin, and they have these half moon plates on the top and the bottom, which means if you wanted a wider stretch on the uprights, or let's say you had 2 people that are using the functional trainer and not the rack component, you could technically move them to the outside, put the pins in, and then you could individually like use each one and be away from each other. Or you could have a wider stretch, you could push them out wide. I actually really like that feature. It didn't cost a lot for them to add, and I think it's just pretty smart. The fold away option does fold away pretty quickly and easily. If you want a fold away rack and you want the ability to do a functional trainer, that's actually a pretty cool option because most fold away racks have no opportunity to use the cable function, but this one does. And they include a lot of like just integrated accessories on all of the racks. You have your low row foot plate, you have your band pegs both on the bottom and the top. You have multi-grip pull-up bars on all of them, and they're kind of all different multi-grip pull-up bars. My favorite multi-grip that they have on their racks is actually on the folding one, because just like the standard arch multi-grip, I actually think it feels the best and has the most angles. They do have plate horns off the back of a lot of their racks, which is nice if you want to add plates, but it does force you to leave the rack off of the wall quite a bit because you have to get back there and put the plates. So honestly, it'd be nicer if they made the rack a little bit longer and then you could put the plates on there. But they did that because you have the weight trolley on the back. If you put plates on there and plates on the weight plate posts, they're just gonna run into each other and not work. They do have like an arch type logo. It's not an arch, but just a piece of metal with a sticker on the back, but making it look more like the bigger, higher end racks. They've got dip handles, J-cups, safety spotter, basically what you'd expect, but a lot of them come included. They're basically making these racks, so if you buy a rack, you don't really have to buy other accessories. It kind of just comes with it, including a landmine. Now to the value, like where does this sit? Would I buy this versus others? Well, I think the ones that compete the most with these are gonna be your Ritfits, your Macolos, your ER Kang, Sports Royals is another. You can find these racks just about anywhere and they get really cheap. In fact, I've seen some of these on Temu, like some of the Macolo racks for like a couple $100, including shipping, just ridiculous. On Major Fitness's site, the racks without the Smith machines are around $930. With the Smith machine are around $1,500 or so, but you can find sales often. If you'd like to find sales, we talk about them all the time on our site, GarageGymReviews.com, especially around like Black Friday and other of those type of deal times. I will say these are not like vastly better than all those other brands I mentioned. They're all using very similar steel, very similar pulleys, very similar cable systems. One of the reasons though that I think Major Fitness should be considered above those in some regard is I don't see this as a lifetime rack. To me, this is a rack you kind of get in to get used to using home gyms, and then maybe over time you sell it and buy something new. Of those racks I mentioned, this one has the most brand capital. Because it has the most brand capital, you're gonna get the best resale value on it versus some of those others that honestly, they're just probably fly-by-night companies. So if I was gonna get into one of these racks and I wanted one of these types of system, I would either go for the really cheapest one and wouldn't worry about reselling it, or I'd go with one of these if I plan to resell it someday. So that's just kind of my thoughts on it. Honestly, they're decent racks for what they are. They're not the best in the world. Like this isn't really like a glowing review. There's a lot of things that I think they could improve on them, but if they improve that on them, they're gonna have to increase the costs. So I would really be looking for these around deal times because they do discount them heavily. And if you like to purchase them, check the link below the like button. Company pays a small commission, but doesn't increase what you pay, but does go to support us so I can keep giving you honest reviews like this one. Okay, what do you think of the Major Fitness racks? Do you prefer the name Major Luti or Major Fitness? Let me know in the comments. And are there any other racks like this of this level and price point that you'd like me to try? Because I'd love to get them in. All right, this has been Coop from Garage Gym Reviews. See you next time. Peace.